Today's shiur begins a little more than halfway down Daf Pei Daled. You'll notice a Mishnah. If you like, you can count 21 lines up from the bottom. On the side of the Gemara, in the margin, we've written a nosei. Chalukas nichsei hames bein ishto bal choivoi v'yorshov. A person dies, leaving property, and we'll discuss how it's divided amongst his wife. She has a ksuba that's owed to her. The deceased, may have owed money to people from whom he borrowed. That's your Baal Chovo. And you have the heirs. The Mishnah. Misha meis v'niach isha u'Baal Chov v'yorshim. V'hoyu lo pikodon o milva b'yad achirim. And the deceased also had articles that were entrusted to others, people who watch his items, or he had outstanding debts to collect. Milva b'yad achirim, he stood to collect debts. People owed him money. Rabbi Tarfon Omer, yinosnu l'koshel shebohen. The pikodon, or the outstanding loan, shall be given to koshel shebohen. The Gemara will deal later with that expression. The chidush, the point, is a novel point here, and that even though we have a rule that metaltali dim yasmi lo mishtabdi, portables that have already been inherited by the heirs are not bound to serve as a means of paying off his debts. So Rabbi Tarfon is mechadesh that since the items were not in the deceased's literal domain when he died, they are available for collection by those to whom he owed money. Rabbi Akiva Omer, Ein Rachmin Bedin, we don't show compassion or mercy or kindness when it comes to the law. Ela Yenosnu Liyorshim. It goes to the heirs, and someone else's grabbing of it will not be effective. We say lo mahani bo tfisa. Tfisa means grabbing hold of it will not work. And why do the heirs win out? Shekulon tzrichim shvua. All those to whom the deceased owed money and come to collect from the deceased, they would have to swear that they had not received payment when they come to collect from the heirs. V'ein hayorshim tzrichim shvua. Heirs collect what's due to them. They inherit that which is due to them without any need for taking an oath. Hiniach peros tlushin min hakarka. The deceased left fruits that were detached from the ground. Kol hakodim bohen zocha bohen. Rashi says kol hakodim bohen zocha kidmu yorshim. If the heirs took hold of it first, zochu, they keep it. V'ein motzim yor, we don't take it from them. The metaltli asmi lo mishtabdi l'bal chov l'ksuba. Portables that are in the possession of the orphans or the heirs are not bound to pay off their father's debt nor their father's wife's ksuba. Kidem echad mehen hoishol amalve. If the wife or the wife meaning the widow or the lender took hold of these things first, zochahu, he keeps it. Rabbi Tarfon is lei tfisa delachar misa mahanya. Rabbi Tarfon is of the opinion, and this is so far this is brought to you by Rabbi Tarfon. We will see him again as we read on in the Mishnah. So Rabbi Tarfon holds, and these are principles that we'll see later in the Gemara, very important principles that Rashi is introducing at this early point. Rabbi Tarfon holds that tfisa, taking hold of items, even after the death of the one who had incurred the debts, the tfisa of those to whom the money was owed is effective. Once again, the tfisa is effective even if it's after the death of the one who had incurred the debts. That's not something that everyone agrees with, though. We continue in the Mishnah. Zochsa, if we're talking about someone who takes hold of the Peros Telushin, Zochsa Isha Yoser Miksuba. So if in taking the fruits, the Peros Telushin, she took more than the value of her Ksuba, Ubalchov Yosachova, or the lender, the Balchov, to whom the deceased owed money, but in taking the fruits, he took more than that which is due to him. Hamosar, the balance. Rabbi Tarfon Omer Yinosnu L'Koshel Shebehen, and Rabbi Akiva Omer Ein Rach Medina Yinosnu L'Yorshim. Shekulan Tzrichen Shvua Vein HaYorshim Tzrichen Shvua, like we saw above. There's a Rashi toward the end of the Mishnah commentary. He says, "Hamoisar yinosnu l'koshel ben ze Baal Hashtar." The koshel is the balchov, the one that has the shtar. Shiyadu ala tachtona. He has the weaker position. The V'yavo liad hayisoimim shuv lo yotzi mehem lo isha v'lo balchov. The balchov and the isha, once the portables, the fruits, the detached fruits, get to the possession of the Yorshim, then they'll have no claim on it. The Gemara. Loma li lemisni malve, loma li lemisni pikodon. Why does the Mishnah teach these two examples of items that were not in the actual domain of the deceased at the point of his death? Tzricha, I need both examples. The Itana milve, had we spoken about a loan, Beha Ka'ama Rabbi Tarfon. Here Rabbi Tarfon would tell you, if I had only that case, I would say, oh, here Rabbi Tarfon says that we don't give it to the Yorshim. Mishum the milva lo hitzah nitna. Milva, once someone borrows money, money is borrowed to be spent. Lotzah means to be spent, meaning it's not around anymore. And being that it's not around, you would have to do a proactive effort in collecting it. We call that mechusar guvaina. It's missing being collected. It needs to be collected. It hasn't been collected. It's not around. So there, I could see Rabbi Tarfon saying that it won't go to the Yorshim. Avo pikodon, an entrusted article in the domain of a watchman, the isei be'ene, it's around, it's physically extant. Amo, I would have thought, modi lay the Rabbi Akiva, that Rabbi Tarfon would concede regarding the Bikada that it automatically goes to the Yorshim, that wherever it is, it's considered in the domain of the heirs. Therefore, I can't tell you just the case of Milva. I have to tell you the case of Pikadon. V'i Tana Ha, had we taught the case of Pikadon, B'ha Kam Rabbi Kiva, here Rabbi Kiva would say, give it to the Yorshim. Based on the Svara, we just said that it is extant. Avol B'hach, in the case of the outstanding loan owed to the deceased, Ema Modi Le Rabbi Tarfon. There, I would say it doesn't automatically go to the heirs. They'll give it to we saw the language in the Mishnah, to the Koshel Shebehen. Therefore, Tzricha, I need to teach that case as well, and the Machlokes, Rabbi Tarfon and Rabbi Kiva. My Lukoshel. So as we long awaited, what does that mean? So we see that we have Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Chanina is one at the, and then Rabbi Yochanan that follows on the same line, number 2. My Lukoshel, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Chanina Omer, Lukoshel Shebaraya. That means you would give it to the one whose shtar, whose document is dated most recently. Being that his document, which enables him to collect, is dated most recently, he cannot go to collect from people that bought from the deceased prior to that date. And he has, in other words, he has the weakest collection possibility, weakest collection power. He's limited to only people that may have purchased from the deceased after the date in this particular shtar. Rabbi Yochanan Omer, Kesubos isha mishum chena. L'koshel, means you give what we saw in the Mishnah, the Pikadon of the Milva will go to the Almana, to the widow, to pay her Kesuba. Mishum Cheno, because of the Cheno consideration. The Cheno consideration, from the word Chen, which means to find favor or grace, it means that we want to encourage women to want to get married, that the men of the world, so to speak, should find favor in the eyes of the women. And how will that be? It will be only if the woman has a sense of comfort or security that she will get money that's due to her. So that in order to preserve or develop or cultivate this concept of chena, we want to show that when there are outstanding items, they will go first. Our first choice is to give it to the women. And that way, women, as we said, will be encouraged to get married, knowing that they have this financial security. Ketanoi. Rabbi Binyamin Omer, Ketanoi means that the two opinions, Rabbi Yosef Chanina and Rabbi Yochanan, said what they said, they reflect a machlokes tanoim. Rabbi Binyamin Omer l'keishel shebaraya v'hu kosher. Rabbi Ozer Omer l'ksubas isha mishum chena. In this source, Rabbi Binyamin said we give it to the keishel sheban v'hu kosher. Rashi comments, v'hu kosher means vadover kosher v'hogun lasas kain. It's a proper thing to do, to give it to the person whose document is dated most recently, as we said before, because he doesn't have his means of collection, his means of receiving compensation is more limited than everyone else. Hiniach peros tlushin, we saw in the Mishnah regarding the detached fruits, what we do with them. Now the Gemara asks, for Rebbe Akiva, my Irya Mosar, in our Mishnah, when we introduced the detached fruits, only when we got to the issue of the extra amount did Rebbe Akiva say that it will go to the Yorshim. After all, Rebbe Akiva says that Yorshim have an upper hand in the sense that they don't have to take an oath in order to collect what's due to them. So why does Rabbi Akiva speak only about the Mosar? Kulu nami the Yorshin havu. All of the Peros Tlushin will go to the Yorshim, according to Rabbi Akiva. So once again, why does Rabbi Akiva's opinion regarding the Peros Tlushin appear only when you're dealing with the Mosar, the amount, the value above the claimants? Gemara says, in Hochinami, that is true. That according to Rabbi Akiva, the Peros Tlushin will all go to the Yorshim, not just the Mosar. The Aidin of Rabbi Tarfon Mosar, and since Rabbi Tarfon spoke about the Mosar, Tana Ihunami Mosar. Therefore, Rabbi Akiva also speaks about Mosar. Rashi, you might notice at the bottom line, Va'idi Domer Rabbi Tarfon Mosar. Since Rabbi Tarfon mentioned Mosar, Hadaleihu Nami B'mai the Iri Bay. Rabbi Akiva responded to Rabbi Tarfon concerning that which Rabbi Tarfon spoke about. Ulolam B'kulu Nami Islay. Regarding all of the fruits, Rabbi Akiva will hold his opinion that goes to the Yorshim. Dafilu Tofas. That even if the Balchov or the Kesubos Isha, the woman, grabs them, Mafkinon Le Mine, we will take it away from him and give it to the Yorshim. We continue at the top of Omid Beis. For Rabbi Akiva, Tafisa, Lo Mahanya Klal. We've been explaining the sugya so far. We mentioned a couple of times, and we just saw it in Rashi at the very end of Omid Aleph, that even Tofas, it doesn't work. So we're asking, according to Rabbi Akiva, Tfisa doesn't help at all. Omar Rava, Omar of Nachman, Vehu Shetofas Mechayim. Rabbi Akiva will acknowledge that Tfisa, that grabbing something as a means of compensation, will be effective, we'll say, against the Yorshim at a time that they don't have Yorshim status. Very simply put, if it's grabbed while the the person who owes the money is still alive. On the side we have a topic heading, Hecha munochim perus hatlushim she'alehem cholkim Rabbi Akiva v'Rabbi Tarfon. Where are these detached fruits currently sitting, the fruits concerning which Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Tarfon have their argument? Im nechshavim b'rishus hayorshim v'lo mahani b'hu tfisa shel acher. Are they considered in the domain of the heirs? And hence, if it's in their domain, so someone else coming along and taking them will not be of any value, won't be effective. So now the Gemara. Ula Rabbi Tarfon, the fruits concerning which Rabbi Tarfon said that the Yorshim do not get, those detached fruits. The Manchi Hecha, where are they located? Where are they lying? Rabbi Shmuel Damri Travayu, V'hu shetzvurin uminochin b'rshus harabim. If they're piled up and lying in a pile in a public thoroughfare, then the Yorshim will not get it. That is when Rabbi Tarfon says the Yorshim don't get it. Avol, besimta lo. The simta, we can say without committing ourselves to an actual translation, it would be something like an alleyway. In other words, not the main drag. Rashi says on simta, Keren Zovis Asmuchu Shusram, a corner that's near a thoroughfare. And in that, the area of a simta, Rashi says, Ubnei Odom Oisim Schor Ozeim Zeh B'Shuk V'Rotzim L'Dabri L'Vrem B'Nachas V'Yishu Hadas M'Stalkin L'Sham. People that are engaged in commercial activity in a public area will go to a simta when they want to have a private conversation. So it's not an open place, and therefore the Yorshim are capable of inheriting it. So this, of course, is all within Rabbi Tarfon that says, that introduced the idea of the Yorshim not getting it. So when is it that they don't get it? When the fruits are lying in a public thoroughfare. Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish Damri Travayu Afilu Besimta. They say that according to Rabbi Tarfon, the Yorshim will not get it, even if the fruits are in that alleyway or that location off the main drag. Don Daini Rabbi Tarfon. There was an incident where the judges ruled like Rabbi Tarfon, which would mean a deprivation of the Yisoimim. V'ahadre Reish Lakish le'uvda minayon. Reish Lakish reversed their ruling. He holds like Rabbi Akiva that tfisa does not work. Omar le Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says to Reish Lakish, Asita kishel torah. You just reverse the ruling of the Dayanim without giving any reasons. You make it sound it's like some kind of oral tradition. Halacha l'Moshe miSinai. Rabbi Yochanan is saying, I can appreciate you're having a position that would hold that the Yorshim don't get it, but once they were granted possession of it by the judges, how is it that you come along and reverse that? Based on what? That's Rabbi Yochanan's, attack on Reish Lakish's position. So, just to review, Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish are holding firmly that the Yorshim do not get it. They're reflecting, let's say, a Rabbi Tarfon approach. And Reish Lakish came along and reversed it. And that even after the Yorshim were granted possession of it, I should say, even after the outsiders were granted possession of it, Reish Lakish came along and took it away from the outsiders and gave it to the Yorshim, holding like Rabbi Akiva that tfisa doesn't help. As we go on in the Gemara, you can see we have a topic heading on the side, a topic heading with a structural note. Maise sheposku dayonim Rabbi Tarfon, the mahani tfisa, uba Reish Lakish v'hafaches piskam the Rabbi Akiva, the Sover, the Hayorshim Zachu. The triangles, Birur, B'mai, Cholkim, Reish Lakish, Rabbi Yochanan. What's the underlying point of controversy? The Gemara. Lema, B'halkom, if we do take note that we have 4 stages till we get to a point at which we could say that we've figured out what they're arguing about. I have to emphasize again, at the expense of sounding repetitive, what preoccupies the Gemara here is Reish Lakish's willingness to reverse a case that was already ruled upon, to reverse it in order to paskin, in order to rule like Rabbi Akiva. So, what is the underlying point of machlokes? Let us suggest that the following is the point of machlokes. Now, a word of background is necessary here, and that is that the Gemara elsewhere speaks about what we call rules of psak. And amongst the rules of issuing halachic rulings, there is an idea that when Rabbi Akiva argues with a colleague of his, we will follow Rabbi Akiva. That's called halachic Rabbi Akiva mechavero. Now, that is we call it an Amoraic revelation. However, it is a well-accepted, firm idea, and hence the Gemara will refer to it as a Dvar Mishnah. Dvar Mishnah literally means some teaching from the Mishnayos. But Rashi points out that this concept of the halacha shall follow Rabbi Akiva over his arguing on a contemporary of his, on a colleague of his, that is a well-known idea. The question is, here you had the Dayanim ruling not like Rabbi Akiva. Is that a type of ruling that can be reversed? So we continue in the Gemara. The more Sava Reish Lakish is of the opinion B'dvar Mishnah Choser, when a mistake is made concerning an important ruling, the case must be reversed. Umor Sava Rabbi Yochanan holds B'dvar Mishnah Eino Choser, that even though in principle Rabbi Yochanan might agree that the halacha should follow Rabbi Akiva, but nevertheless, if a ruling was made that didn't follow that, it's not reversed. So maybe that's the point of machlokes, this concept of Tal B'dvar Mishnah Choser or not. Lo, that's not the point of machlokes. The Kuli Almo Tal B'dvar Mishnah Choser. Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish will say that it would have to be reversed. And here we have to understand, why are they arguing if they're in agreement concerning Tal B'dvar Mishnah? So the following is the suggestion. Mor Savar Halacha Rabbi Akiva mechaveroi, v'lo me'rabo. Rabbi Yochanan, who did not want to have the Rabbi Tarfon ruling reversed to go like Rabbi Akiva, it's because it's true we follow Rabbi Akiva over against his colleague, but not against his teacher. Rabbi Tarfon being considered, at least at this point, Rabbi Akiva's teacher. Umar Savar Halacha Afilu Me'rabo. When we say the halacha follows Rabbi Akiva, it means even against his teachers. V'boy Sema, another approach. The Kuli Alma Halacha Rabbi Akiva Mechaver V'lo Me'rabo. The rule says the halacha follows Rabbi Akiva only when he's up against a colleague, not against his master, not against his teacher. V'acha b'halka mifagi. What's the point of machlokes between Reish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan is as follows: Mor Sovar Rabbi Tarfon equals Rabo Have. Notice we will follow Rabbi Akiva only against a colleague, not against his teacher. So Rabbi Yochanan, who had ruled like Rabbi Tarfon, was doing so because he would rule like Rabbi Tarfon and not like Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Tarfon being his Rebbe. Umor Savar Reish Lakish, who wanted to see the case reversed to reflect Rabbi Akiva, Chavero Have. Rabbi Tarfon was not a teacher of Rabbi Akiva, but rather his colleague. V'boy Semo de Kuli Almo Chavero Have. Another approach says that Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish will agree that Rabbi Tarfon was Rabbi Akiva's friend, he was his colleague. V'hacha b'halka miflagi. Mor Savar Halacha Yitmar. Reish Lakish will tell you that when we say halacha Rabbi Akiva Chaver, means literally halacha that you have to rule that way. That the ruling is to be made like Rabbi Akiva. Umor Sovar Matin Itmar. Rabbi Yochanan says that we present the concept of halacha Rabbi Akiva not using the term halacha, but rather matin. Matin, Rashi explains matin. Itmar matin ha'ro lechatchila achar Rabbi Akiva. That we would tilt in favor of Rabbi Akiva. Umiu ovid kidach lo madrinan uvda. If, however, a ruling is made like the opposing opinion, then we would not reverse the opinion. So that explains why Rabbi Yochanan did not see any need to have the ruling that was unlike Rabbi Akiva reversed, because we'll say the urgency of ruling like Rabbi Akiva is not so great. Kreve the Rabbi Yochanan. Now we have a new marking, and on the side we have a structural note, and we indicate it goes till Pei Hey Omid Beis. You can see the diamond is featured. These are Maisim Sheyesh Bohem Inyonei Tfisa Ugvias Chovos. These are a long list of stories, and as we indicate, it goes till Pei Hey Omid Beis. It's a very, very long list of incidents that involve tfisa. Tfisa means taking hold of something in an attempt to recover debts owed to people. The dashed underline, you'll see havlotas tfisas rechush yisoimim misimta. When you see, if you just scan ahead of the Gemara, you'll see that something diyasmi misimta, something that was part of an estate that was found in the simta, the alleyway, as opposed to a reshus harabim. We had mentioned earlier that the concept of tfisa, when we were discussing Rabbi Akiva at the top of the Omid, the concept of tfisa is applicable when you grab it while the person is still alive, not after he died. When we discussed tfisa in the context of Rabbi Tarfon, we wanted to know where were the items lying that enabled someone else to take hold of them. Is that only in a public domain, or possibly even not in an absolute public domain, but even in an alleyway? It's not in the physical, actual domain of the Yorshim yet. The Gemara. Itmar, Kreve, the Rabbi Yochanan, Tofus Poro Diasmi Misimta. A relative of Rabbi Yochanan grabbed hold of a cow of Yisoimim that was in an alleyway. Also L'kamei, the Rabbi Yochanan. The case came to Rabbi Yochanan, Omar Lahu Shapir Tefastuha. He told them that your taking of it was good. You did well. You were in the right for having taken hold of it. Also L'kamei, Rav Shimon Lakish. Omar Lahu Zilu Ahadur. This is not surprising. We saw this just above, where Reish Lakish took it away from he said, you have to return it to the Yisoimim. Now we must add over here, because Reish Lakish holds, like Rabbi Akiva, that tfisa done after a person is dead is not effective. That's called tfisa la'achar misa. And we're talking here about a part of Yisoimim. Yisoimim means their benefactor is dead. So the idea of grabbing something after the benefactor is dead, it's ineffective. Also, the kamei de Rabbi Yochanan. So now, those that had grabbed it, Rabbi Yochanan's relatives, come back to Rabbi Yochanan, and Omar Lahu, he says, Ma ese shekenegdi chaluk alai. Well, what can I do? You have someone who's my equal, namely Reish Lakish, who argues with me, so I can't be of any help for you once Reish Lakish issued his ruling. Hahu Bakra Diyasmi. Bakra is a person who's in charge, who we can call it a person who's in charge of animals. And here he's watching the animals. He's watching the herd of Yisoimim. The tafsi tura minei. a balchov, a creditor of the deceased, came and grabbed a cow from this cow watchman, from this bakra. Balchov, Omar, the balchov, the creditor who came to grab a cow, claimed, Mechayim tafistolei, I took hold of the cow when the deceased was still alive. Ubakra, Omar, the watchman, said, what do you mean? Lachar miso tafsei, you grabbed it after he was dead already, and that your grabbing of it is of no significance. You have to release it. Asu lekamei Rav Nachman. The case came to Rav Nachman. Omar lei, he told the watchman, he asked the watchman, Isloch Sadi de Tafse, do you have witnesses that he grabbed it? Omar lei, Lav, no, I don't have any witnesses. Omar lei, so Rav Nachman says to the relatives of Rabbi Yochanan, Migu di yochol lemeimar lakuchu biyodi, since the balchov can say, let me just correct myself. I erroneously made reference to the relatives of Rabbi Yochanan. So let's just go back and we have the watchman of the Yisomim versus the creditor of the deceased. So the case came to Rav Nachman, and Omar Lei, Rav Nachman says to the watchman, Isloch Sadi de Tafse, do you have witnesses that the creditor had grabbed it? Omar Lei, Lav, no, I don't. Omar Lei, so Rav Nachman says to the watchman, you're out of luck. Migu diyochol lemeimar, since that balchov, that creditor, could have said, the cow lakuchu biyodi. This is a cow that I bought. Yochol nami lemeimar mechayim tafistale. He can say that I grabbed it. Yes, I grabbed it, but when the creditor was still alive. The Gemara asks, "V'amrei shlokish hagoydros ein lahem chazaka." Goydros is a reference to animals. Animals tend to wander from place to place, and as a result of that, ein lohen chazaka. We look at Rashi. Ein lohen chazaka. Ein hamachzik bohen yochol lomar lekuchneim biyodi. Someone who's holding on to them cannot claim them to be his on the grounds that, or based on the claim, I bought them. Shemo matzon, you might have merely found them. V'chnisan b'feisel l'fishadakalach besados. You found them wandering around, and maybe they wandered into your field, and you kept them. So that the claim of you have to believe me in what I say because I could have said I bought them. That kind of claim doesn't apply to godros. To godros, again, animals. The Gemara says, in this case, it is a claim. Shiny Turah are oxen. They're different. They don't just wander around. The Mesira L'Roa, they're given to the charge of a cowhand, Roa as a shepherd. So, being that they don't just wander around, they're under someone's charge, and now they're found in the possession of a balchov, and there's no witnesses that he grabbed it from the watchman. We believe him when he says that I collected it, I grabbed it when the balchov, when the debtor was still alive. The Bei Nesiya Tofus Amso Diasmi Misimta. Members of the Nosi's household. Nosi is the leader, the head of the Jewish community. Someone from that household grabbed an Amsa, a maidservant, the Yasmi, that was owned by Yisomim. And where was she? In a simta, in an alleyway. Yosef and the Bei Nesiya will have to assume that the money was owed to them by the deceased. Yosef, Rabbi Avo, Rabbi Chanina Bar Popi, Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha. You have three Rabbanan that were seated there. Yosef, Rabbi Abba Gabayo, and a fourth rabbi was seated there too. He was seated with them. Amaluhu, Shapir Tafsituha. So it was said in the name of one of these three rabbis, at least he said to the one that grabbed it, that to the Bei Nesiya, the members of the Nosi's house, that, you did a good job in that taking that bondmaid. Omar lehu, Rabbi Abba says to them, Mishum de Bei Nesiya ninu, because you're talking to someone from the house of the Nosi, Machnefisu lehu, you have to play to them, you flatter them. V'ha don daini karebi tarfon. We had an incident we saw earlier about paskening, like that tfisa, dayan and paskening that tfisa was effective. V'hadrei Reish Lakish uvdaminayu, and Reish Lakish reversed that ruling and gave it back to the orphans or to the heirs. So how can you be so sure? How can you claim and say that shapir tafsitua? Yemar bar Choshu. Choshu is a name of his father. Yemar bar Choshu havu masik be zuzi bahu gavra. Yemar was owed money by some man. Shachiv v'shofik arba. The borrower died and he left a boat. Omar le lishluche. Yemar said to his agent, Zil tofsa nihalei, go grab hold of that boat for me. Ozal tofsa. He went and grabbed it. Pogu Bey, Rav Papa, Rav Huna, Rav Yeshua. They met up with that agent of Yemar, and they said to him, Amru lei at. We're going to describe what you did. You're a toifes l'bachov v'mokum shechav l'chirim. You are grabbing an item on behalf of your meshaleach, the person who sent you. You're grabbing it on his behalf in a situation where you're causing other creditors to lose out because of your taking it. So others to whom he owed money will now lose out. That's a concept of someone working in agency on behalf of someone, causing others a loss, causing others to be deprived. The Gemara continues at the top of Pei Lo Kana, that the agency in this capacity does not work. So if you thought that you're holding on, that you took the boat on behalf of Yemar Bar Choshu, your actions are ineffective. So it's as if nothing. It's as if the boat is still there. And now what happens? Tafsua inhu. You have in this story Rav Papa, Rav Huna, Rav Yeshua. They also had. There was the boat owner owed them money also. He owed not only Yemar Bar Choshu, but that Hahu Gavra owed Rav Papa and Rav Huna Rav Yeshua as well. So now they just told the agent that your taking of it is ineffective. So thereby we'll say they free up the boat, and now they grabbed it. Rav Papa Mimlach Meluchi, in grabbing a boat, what does that mean? The boat's a large thing. A person doesn't grab a boat and embrace it. So what it means, Rav Papa says, he Mimlach Meluchi. Rashi says, Manhiga be'oigen shalah. Shikoran, and in Rashi some French words, but he took control of the boat by the ogen. Other places you see the word ogen associated with the anchor. Maybe it means he lifted anchor, enabling it to start sailing. And Rav Huna Brei Yeshua Mimtach Lo Be'ashla. What Rav Huna did is he took hold of the ropes. Mor Omar Ano Kanina Lo Lekula. Umar Omar Ano Kanina Lo Lekula. Each one was claiming that through their actions, their commandeering of the boat, each one in their respective ways, they were claiming that they got it. It's interesting to note, again, the Gemara might be revealing, or might be, let's say, describing or hinting to some hidden messages, but on the superficial level, as you look at the Gemara and appreciate it at its face value, you have two very great men, Rav Papa and Rav Huna Rav Yeshua, that were in conflict with one another over monetary matters. And as you can see, each one is claiming against the other one. How can you be claiming any of it? It's all mine. I commandeered it. Poga b'hu Rav Pinchas bar Ami. Rav Pinchas met up with them, Omar Luhu, and he said to them, Rav Shmuel, Damri Travayu, Fuhu Shitzvur Munochem B'Shus Arabim. This idea of grabbing something so that the Yorshim don't get it, the heirs don't get it, it works only in a public thoroughfare. Amru Lay, so Rav Papa and Rav Yeshua told this Rav Pinchas, Ana nami mecharifusa denaro tafisna. We grabbed the boat not while it was in a private dock. We grabbed the boat from the middle of the river. Now the middle of the river is where there's a strong flow. That's mecharifusa denaro. Charifus is the swift flow of the river, the middle of the river. And then that's like a Rishus Harabim. Also the Kamei de Rava. They again, remember they were fighting with each other. Who owns the boat now? So the case came to Rava. Omar Lahu, and he reacted to them. Koki chivri mishachi glimi dinshi. Koki chivri we can translate more or less as chivri means white. Koki is a reference to white geese. And Rashi says he made that reference to them. This reference to whiteness is that they were elderly themselves. They were zakanim. They were not young men. I know that Rava was older than they, so he refers to them in this seemingly derisive form. But again, Rava was a greater individual than they, even though they themselves were outstanding. Rava says to them, "You white geese, you strip people of their clothing." That's the literal translation. And you'll see why he said that. Hachiyam Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman says, this whole concept of grabbing something, that's effective only if done when the lender, the borrower, when the debtor is still alive. Then the creditor's claim on items will have validity, hence preventing Yisomim from taking hold of it. But if the grabbing takes place till after the debtor is dead, then the tfisa doesn't help. With that, we conclude our shiur for today.